The story begins in a peaceful forest where a group of people are surrounded by lush green trees, vibrant plants, and various rock formations as they explore the wonders of nature. These people wore armor and engaged in conversation when a cat with a green cape approached them and asked for a moment of their time. Two men and a woman stepped forward, bowing down to converse with the cat. The cat asked them if they would like to try something good. The two boys recognize it's the wandering merchant cat, and the other guy asks the merchant cat what he is selling. The cat takes something from his bag and shows it to them. The man seems disappointed when he sees it as just a cherry tomato, expressing that they can eat such things anytime. The girl, however, takes the tomato. The guys expected it to be something like a legendary weapon or a mysterious potion, so one of them asked the merchant cat again if it was just a regular cherry tomato. The merchant cat reacts and says they are foolish. The cat knew they would respond that way, and he explained that it was different from an ordinary cherry tomato. Just then, another girl approaches the girl holding the cherry tomato earlier, and now they are both holding it. They observe the cherry tomatoes and notice that the status window is different. It appears like an item. The girl with brown hair explains that it is a magical cherry tomato that increases MP by 0.1 for 10 minutes, burns 10 grams of fat, and has a shelf life of 30 days. Suddenly, a girl and a guy approached. The girl was shocked and asked if she could lose 10 grams of fat just by eating the cherry tomato she was holding. The guy also asked if it was possible. The merchant cat confirmed it was possible and priced each tomato at 0.5 tower coins. Without hesitation, they eagerly fought over the cherry tomato that the merchant cat was selling. Then one of the guys asked the merchant cat where he found those items, specifically the cherry tomato, and who had made them. The merchant cat replied that it was a secret. In the place where cherry tomatoes were being cultivated, there was a man responsible for harvesting them with the help of his rabbits. After gathering the cherry tomatoes, he told the rabbits they had enough tomatoes for the day and encouraged them to rest. After a while, he squeezed the tomatoes into his cup and asked his honeybee for some honey. The bee had his honey, and then he shook the mixture together. They all drink it together with his 6 rabbits. The vitality drink was a honey and cherry tomato juice mix. While seated, the man read a document that instructed him to distribute the honey water to the tower managers. The compensation mentioned was none, while rejection would lead to disappointment. In the cave in the middle of the forest, the guy sat holding his cup when suddenly a merchant cat appeared from the top of the cave and called the man Master Sejun. The cat mentioned that it had returned and jumped down to Sejun. Sejun commented that it was a pretty quick return. The cat proudly said it was sold out, bringing in a lot of tower coins. After a while, they both sat by a pond. The cat warned Sejun that it was not the time to fool around because it needed to leave after eating to earn more money. Sejun suggested resting for a while, but the merchant cat asked the black rabbit to refill their supplies. The black rabbit and the merchant cat waded into the water to replenish their stock. At the same time, Sejun watched from a distance, observing the merchant cat's growing addiction to earning money. Later, Sejun realized that he had forgotten something important about keeping track of his days there. Our main character is named Park Sejun, and he belongs to the class of tower farmers. It had been 150 days since he somehow ended up in the tower and became lost. Sejun, accompanied by the black rabbit and the merchant cat, stood and stared at their farm area. Sejun eagerly asked if they were ready to begin. And so this is the story of how Sejun survived being lost in the tower. Almost 10 years ago in Seoul, a 99-floored black tower suddenly appeared in the middle of Gangnam on a bustling day. But it wasn't just Gangnam affected. 100 towers appeared simultaneously in cities across different countries, including Korea. Each country conducted investigations on the tower that emerged on their land. Still, they discovered that the tower stood at a staggering height of 990 meters and was constructed from a solid material that couldn't be pierced even by nuclear bombs. Then something happened. People began to come out from the tower walls wearing armor-like clothes. Reporters interviewed one of the individuals who had come out of the tower, asking how he ended up inside. The man explained that one day he was suddenly sucked into a black hole, and when he woke up, he found himself on the tower's first floor. As news about these people emerging from the tower spread, it became a trending topic on social media. The man continued to speak, revealing that all 100 towers were interconnected, and upon entering the tower, individuals would awaken on the first floor and choose a role, a magician or a warrior. He mentioned that as people progressed through the tower, monsters would appear on the second floor, and each time a floor was cleared, different rewards awaited them. He proudly displayed a golden ticket, explaining that it was an item that allowed awakened individuals like them to freely enter and exit the tower. However, ordinary people required this ticket to access the tower, and only the awakened could ascend its floors. A reporter questioned whether people would willingly enter such a frightening tower infested with monsters and if they knew the reason behind its appearance. The individuals immediately responded that no one knew the answer yet. However, their explanation was interrupted when the girl revealed the contents of a violet bag containing an astonishing amount of gold coins. Everyone was shocked by the abundance of wealth. They continued to explain, confidently stating that one thing was certain: ascending the tower would bring them riches. The news about the tower continued to spread like wildfire on social media. The Awaken Association announced that the price of Black Tower tickets would increase from 150 million won to 200 million won starting the following week. They also revealed that hundreds of people eagerly awaited tickets before the price hike. The woman at the ticket counter watched all of this unfold, thinking the world had gone mad. She couldn't comprehend why people were willing to risk their lives for money, and now they were expected to pay 200 million won. She voiced her thoughts to a young man nearby who agreed with her. This young man was Park Sejun, 26 years old. Sejun looked at his phone, calculating his expenses, deducting tuition fees, interest, and rent. He realized he had saved up about 12 million won at most. However, if the ticket price increased again, he wondered when he could afford it. As he walked up the stairs, gazing at the tower from a distance, he thought about whether he would ever truly be able to buy a ticket. Sejun felt exhausted, but he couldn't give up. He tried to encourage himself, believing there must be a way to save more money. He thought about buying vegetables at a low price and even considered trying his hand at growing them, as he had heard their prices had also increased. Suddenly, he remembered seeing his favorite idol member Sarah in a commercial promoting vegetable cultivation. Sejun realized he should save as much money as possible to buy the ticket, as it might even lead him to a guild once they witnessed his talents. He imagined himself successfully clearing the tower and even proposing to Sarah, a member of Korea's top idol group. Just then, a sudden opening appeared behind him, resembling a hole. Sejun had no clue what it was, but he speculated that it might be the vanishing phenomenon that had sucked in the first generation of the Awakened. Excitement flooded him as he hoped the hole would take him too. He was ready to risk his life to climb the tower, desperately rushing towards the shrinking black hole and finally entering it. He landed on a flat land, completely clueless if he had entered the tower. His excitement to see the luxurious chandeliers, marbles, and the first floor placed, filled with equipment and potions as described in the press conference, quickly turned into disappointment. Instead, he only saw an expansive plain of forest. Sejun felt let down, unsure of his whereabouts. Meanwhile, a mysterious rabbit with violet eyes became curious about the changes detected in the crystal ball, realizing it needed to investigate as the tower's manager to find the cause. Everyone was curious about the Black Tower, and a video titled Awakened describes the Black Tower went viral with 1.6 million views. The girl in the video wondered if the tower was like a spacious and shiny palace. Their only information was from a guy who came out of the tower. He mentioned that the tower had various items for sale, and he usually bought potions. He also emphasized that the training ground on the first floor was vital for survival, as it prepared them to fight the monsters inside. That became the advice passed on to everyone. Meanwhile, Sejun sat on a rock, lost in his thoughts. Suddenly, he realized he was trapped in a cave with no visible exit. There was no ground, no stores, nothing. Even if he screamed for help, nobody would hear him. He began to doubt if he had become lost. As he lost hope, his alarm went off, indicating a day had passed. Although there was no network, he trusted the accuracy of the alarm. After a while, Sejun got hungry and began searching for the food he had brought into the cave. He had 1 bottle of water, 27 cherry tomatoes, 10 green onions, 7 pumpkin sweet potatoes, and a single washed apple. He started with the apple since he believed it was the best choice for a morning snack. However, even after finishing it, he still felt unsatisfied. So he tried the pumpkin and was surprised by its tasty flavor. Normally, pumpkin was always cooked, but he figured it was okay to eat it raw sometimes. Feeling thirsty, he drank some water to quench his thirst. After eating, Sejun lay on the rock, gazing at the clouds above. He pondered how long he would have to stay in this place. He knew he needed to find a way out before his food supply ran out. Looking at the remaining food, he wondered how long it would sustain him. He feared he might be like a mummy if he wasn't rescued. He refused to accept such a fate. After all, he had finally entered the tower he had dreamed of, and he couldn't allow himself to perish like that. Suddenly, an idea struck him regarding the leftover apple. He planted it in the ground along with the root part of the green onions. He also chose to plant 3 tomatoes and 2 potatoes. He watered them and left the rest of the food as his immediate sustenance. Sejun decided to remain positive and do whatever it took to survive. His hope lay in the plants he had planted, representing his future. Suddenly, he heard a sound coming from above. It resembled the growl of a monster, but he remembered what the people in the video had said. Monsters did not exist on the first floor. Then he noticed a blue moon in the sky. He quickly covered his ears with his hands as it seemed like the sound was causing him pain. When he looked up again, he saw a black dragon. Before he could utter a word about its beauty, he found himself lying down. The next day, his phone alarm startled him awake. As he reached for his phone, he was shocked to discover that he had been unconscious for 2 days. As he stood up, he felt a sharp pain in his waist. He was exhausted and his body ached all over. However, he noticed a tree nearby and remembered that he had planted the green onions. He gazed at the plants, amazed at how much they had grown in just 2 days. They had surpassed his height. He surmised that the tower had influenced their growth, as he had seen in documentaries that plants adapt to their surroundings. Curiosity drove him to look for the tomatoes and pumpkins he had planted. Surprisingly, he found 52 plants which were still small compared to the tall green onions. He realized that the green onion plant's shadow might hinder the smaller plants from receiving sufficient sunlight. With this in mind, he decided to harvest the green onions by cutting them. However, they proved to be thicker and harder than he had expected. After finishing the green onion harvest, he wondered what it tasted like. As he took a bite, his face turned red and he hurriedly ran towards the river for water. The green onions turned out to be spicier than he had anticipated. Still, they did not cause any discomfort in his stomach. After a while, he sat on the rock. He started eating the cherry tomatoes he had set aside, allowing the green onions to dry. He held up a tomato to the sun, realizing that the sun did not set in the tower. However, there are occasions on each floor when the sun is temporarily obscured by the moon, resulting in the phenomenon known as the blue moon. Sejin remembered that the blue moon phenomenon only occurred on the 10th floor, which made him believe he was somewhere on the first floor. Furthermore, the black dragon he had seen was not a mere illusion. 10 years ago, when the tower appeared, one of the prominent guilds, Phoenix Guild, cleared the 37th floor. Information about the floors from 30 to 37 was kept top secret due to rival guilds. Still, ample information was available on YouTube regarding the floors below 30. The 2nd to 10th floors were inhabited by skeleton soldiers, the 11th to 20th floors by goblins, and the 21st to 30th floors by orcs. Rumors circulated about spider monsters on the 31st floor, but there had been no mention of dragons or dragon-like creatures. Sejin lay on the rock, pondering which floor he was on. He wondered if he had ended up on a floor that even the highest-ranked hunters had yet to reach. Suddenly, something fell on his face, making him think it was raining. However, he had heard that the tower generally had good weather. Looking up, he saw a creature he initially mistook for a monster, but it turned out to be a rabbit. The rabbit hopped and Sejin prepared to catch it, thinking it might fall. Surprisingly, the rabbit gracefully descended, indicating that it was no ordinary rabbit. The rabbit was pointing at the green onions. Sejin asked the rabbit if it wanted to eat them, and he cut a green onion and offered it to the rabbit. The rabbit happily began munching on the green onion. Sejin assured him there were more where that came from, as he had plenty of green onions. He explained that they had grown so much that he needed to harvest them twice daily. Suddenly, the rabbit stood up, looking upwards as if expecting something. Sejin was puzzled until another rabbit descended, carrying watering tools that Sejin could use for his plants. In Sejin's diary of his journey in the tower, a couple of rabbits joined him in the cave. Another day arrived, and the rabbits diligently harvested the green onions and watered the cherry tomatoes and pumpkins. Sejin sat watching the rabbits with amazement, wondering how this partnership came to be. Suddenly, the rabbits approached him and asked if they could stay in the cave. Sejin agreed, but clarified that their stay would come with a condition. They had to help with farming. As he explained the tasks, one of the rabbits jumped and hugged him tightly. After a while, Sejin sat back, contemplating the situation. It felt as if he were being controlled, raising some concerns. He asked the rabbit responsible for watering and harvesting if their tools were magical. The husband rabbit's spray bottle seemed to have an endless water supply, and the wife rabbit always had the right farming tools. Sejin couldn't help but feel jealous, wishing he had such equipment. After the rabbits finished their tasks, they eagerly waited for Sejin to check the plants. He saw that the sweet potatoes hadn't changed, but the cherry tomatoes had grown bigger and healthier. The plants were growing really quickly. He was thinking if it was because of the rabbits. While the rabbits are patiently waiting for him, and he says they passed, they were so happy. Suddenly, the two rabbits run off, leaving Sejin clueless about their actions. To his surprise, the rabbits quickly constructed a small house for themselves. Sejin was amazed by the husband rabbit's impressive building skills. With the rabbits now by his side, Sejin felt a sense of happiness and relief, no longer alone in the cave. He lay down among the green onions, reflecting on how grateful he was to have the rabbits' assistance with farming and for the joy they brought him. As Sejin rested on the bed of green onions, he began to feel a sensation of warmth. It dawned on him that the green onions were producing fire, and next to them was a bottle of water. Sejin didn't lose hope in the Black Tower's tough environment. Luckily, he had dried green onions and a plastic bottle of water. Remembering a survival video he watched, he tried using the bottle as a magnifying glass to start a fire with a green onion. But it didn't work, only smoke, no flames. Confused, Sejin blew on the smoke, hoping it would ignite, but still nothing. The two rabbits came out of their house and noticed Sejin blowing on the dry green onion. Surprisingly, the rabbits stood before him, and he asked them for help by blowing on the green onion. One of the rabbits started blowing on it, and finally it caught fire. Sejin happily sat beside the fire, holding the harvested green onion and eating it. To his surprise, it tasted incredibly sweet, like pure sugar. It made him feel like he was running freely in a wild field on the back of a green horse. Sejin shared his joy with the rabbits, who also put more green onions on the fire. They seemed happy and satisfied. This was a significant moment in Sejin's diary of his journey through the tower. Finally, he filled his stomach with warm food and felt grateful for the rabbits' help. He went to sleep, hopeful and curious about the tower's mysteries, knowing he had companions and a full stomach to accompany him. The next day, Sejun woke up and headed straight to the river to wash his face before tending to his plants. After a while, he finished harvesting the green onions and watering the cherry tomatoes and pumpkins. Many things happened to me recently. After he learned how to start a fire with the help of the rabbits, he also used green onions and installed torches around the cave. It will help him roam around the cave easily. The torches would help Sejun see in the dark. Holding one of the torches, Sejun mentioned to the rabbits that the area around the pond was particularly dark and that installing a torch there would be beneficial. As he went to place the torch, a fish suddenly jumped out of the pond. Sejun hadn't seen any fish there before, but it seemed that the light from the torch had attracted it. This was how Sejun managed to obtain fish in the cave. After a while, Sejun began grilling the fish and happily enjoyed his meal. The two rabbits approached him and he asked if they would also like to eat. They eagerly agreed, joining him in savoring the grilled fish. A few days later, the blue moon appeared again, revealing that it was a recurring phenomenon on this floor happening every 30 days. Sejun had been using a laptop and power bank to keep track of the date and charge his phone, but eventually, his resources ran out. Unable to rely on technology, he resorted to marking the passing days on a rock. It had been 61 days since he arrived in the tower, but the rabbits' consistent sleep schedule comforted him. They slept at 7 p.m. and woke up at 6 a.m. Sejun thought about following their routine to avoid counting days incorrectly due to the perpetual daylight in the tower. A few days ago, something wonderful happened. Sejun happily greeted the husband rabbit with a good morning and was delighted to see a baby rabbit running towards him. The rabbit couple had become parents and Sejun felt immense joy in being an uncle to the little ones. He told the rabbits that it seemed like they needed a break from parenting, so he offered to take care of the kids while they enjoyed their breakfast. Sejun held and hugged the baby rabbits as he walked to the plants. The flowers were blooming, turning the area into a beautiful garden. They needed pollination for fruit to grow, so they did it themselves. After a while, Sejun's back started to hurt from the work. He wished to be would help, but it was too much to expect. Suddenly, a baby rabbit sniffed a flower and sneezed, making Sejun laugh. He warned the rabbit to avoid the pollen, but they saw fruit growing from that flower. They were happy to see the result of their hard work. The day before the blue moon, everything seemed fine. Sejun wore leaves for camouflage and warmth. They waited for the blue moon to end, hiding anything that smelled. Time felt long and Sejun grew tired. They heard cries in the distance, making them anxious. Sejun hoped nothing bad would happen and it would all be over soon. Suddenly, Sejun heard a strange noise. His heart raced as he looked up and saw a huge red monster. Trembling with fear, he hid and hoped the creature wouldn't find him. He tried to find a safer spot without making a sound. But luck was not on his side. His grip slipped and his water bottle and cherry tomatoes crashed. Time stood still as the monster's eyes locked onto him. Sejun screamed in desperation, overwhelmed by terror, unable to hold back his fear any longer. The next day, Sejun was awakened by the rabbits. He didn't remember what happened because he had passed out. His body hurt and he thought about the monster he encountered last night. He almost got killed. The rabbits noticed he felt cold and made a fire to warm him. Sejun sat by the fire, trying to get warm and wrapping himself in a blanket. The rabbits gave him a grilled fish and he thanked them. While eating, he couldn't stop thinking about the monster and whether it had found him or given up. He knew he was lucky this time, but he could still die. Sejun had worked hard to survive and now he needed to eat well to stay alive. While enjoying his meal, one of the rabbits called out to Sejun, inviting him to see something extraordinary. Intrigued, he followed the rabbit to a cluster of plants. To his amazement, the cherry tomatoes had grown to the size of golf balls, but what surprised him even more was their blue hue. He wondered if it meant they were ripe or held some mysterious power. Curiosity got the better of him, and Sejun plucked one of the blue cherry tomatoes and examined it closely. In a bizarre twist, a message appeared before him as if on a screen, congratulating him for completing a quest to harvest a fruit infused with the energy of the blue moon. It left him bewildered and unsure of what it all meant. Before he could make sense of the situation, another message popped up, revealing that the tower manager had noticed his achievement but wasn't pleased. Sejun couldn't understand why. Then to his shock, he learned that the tower manager had realized he wasn't invited. They wanted to hide their mistake. It felt like a slap in the face after living in the cave for 61 days. Sejun just wanted to go home, but things turned even darker when another message appeared, suggesting that the tower manager was considering killing him to cover up their blunder. Sejun became angry. It was unfair and made him furious that they wanted to get rid of him instead of being rewarded. As his frustration grew, another message appeared, indicating that the tower manager was awakening him. Sejun wasn't sure if it meant they recognized him or something bad was happening. Another message stated that the tower manager had assigned Sejun a job. He felt excited to find out what it was. The message revealed that he was now the tower farmer. It explained that as a farmer, he wouldn't get sick, would be close to nature, and would earn experience points when harvesting crops. Curious about his new role, Sejun checked his status window and saw Park Sejun, level 1 with an ordinary talent. His strength, stamina, agility, and magic were rated 1. His job was officially a tower farmer and he didn't have any skills yet. Sejin felt disappointed to see his talent described as ordinary in the status window. He imagined an interviewer introducing him as someone who cleared the tower despite having average talent, and he proudly declared his job as the tower farmer. But he didn't want that to be his reality. His anger subsided when he noticed the rabbits looking at him. While holding the blue cherry tomatoes, Sejin realized how hard he had worked to grow them. Surprisingly, the status window revealed that they were magical tomatoes infused with the energy of the blue moon. These tower-grown tomatoes were nutritious and tasty and permanently increased his stats when eaten. It made him proud to have cultivated something like the cherry tomato. Sejin was shocked to discover that the tomato he held was actually an item. He marveled at its impact on his abilities and thanked the rabbit for their support. But his amazement turned to surprise when a message appeared, instructing him to offer the blue moon fruit to the tower manager or face death. Sejin felt angry, realizing that what they called a quest was blackmail. He voiced his frustration, questioning why they didn't give him a real choice. The idea of death as punishment seemed cruel and made him doubt his worth. He reluctantly handed over the cherry tomato, hoping to spare his life. A message appeared, confirming that he had completed the quest. Then another message appeared, revealing a reward for his accomplishment. It reminded him of the job-related skill mentioned earlier. Sejin had been so focused on the threat of death that he had forgotten about the potential rewards. He acknowledged that the tower manager was quite generous. With anticipation, Sejin opened his reward and discovered a skill called sowing at level 1. It increased the chances of successful seed germination. Though he felt unsure, he accepted it without further delay, realizing that it was a skill relevant to his job as a tower farmer. Night had fallen and Sejin lit torch to attract fish from the nearby pond. To his surprise, they turned out to be piranhas. After successfully defeating one, he gained 2 experience points. With each passing day, Sejin continued to catch piranhas to survive, gradually reaching level 2. Although he wanted to catch more piranhas, he realized it wasn't right to harm living creatures without a good reason. The fish provided him with essential protein, and he didn't want to deplete their population. After grilling the fish, Sejin called out to the rabbits, who had grown hungrier as they grew. He learned from a message that they were known as white farmer rabbits, a monster that specialized in farming rather than fighting. It seemed they had lost their farm and ended up in the tower by chance. Sejin couldn't understand the rabbits' language, so he wondered if they had a home they could return to. He hoped they would understand, so he invited them to join him at the farm on an important day. They were amazed and shocked to see an abundance of cherry tomatoes. Sejin happily declared that it was time to harvest the fruits they had worked so hard to grow, excluding the ones from the Blue Moon incident. With joy in his heart, he began picking the cherry tomatoes, feeling accomplished with each one he collected. Suddenly, a status window appeared, informing him that he had obtained a perfectly ripe magical cherry tomato, earning him 10 experience points for his farming job. Sejin couldn't help but notice the similarities between the magical cherry tomatoes and the previous item he had obtained. The status window explained that these tomatoes were grown within the tower and were nutritious and delicious. When consumed, they could decompose 10 grams of fat and provide a 0.1 MP boost for 10 minutes. Sejin discovered he could stack up to 10 effects at once, with a maximum duration of 1 hour. According to the status window, Sejin, known as Tower Farmer Park Sejin, was responsible for cultivating these magical cherry tomatoes. They had a shelf life of 30 days and were ranked as E. Sejin discovered that the magical cherry tomatoes' effects only lasted for 10 minutes. He wondered if eating 10 tomatoes at once would increase his MP by 1 point. Sometimes he mistakenly picked ordinary tomatoes instead of the magical ones, and he noticed that the experience points were lower and his job experience points didn't increase. To obtain the magical tomato as an item, he needed to harvest a well-ripe one, which proved harder than expected. Despite that, Sejin leveled up and received a bonus stat. Realizing he had enough tomatoes, he apologized to the rabbits for upsetting them. He shared a cherry tomato with them to celebrate their successful harvest. After a while, Sejin lay down on the grass with his rabbits and looked up at the sky. A shooting star appeared, filling him with amazement. He enjoyed the fresh scent of the grass and the delightful blend of sweet and sour flavors that seemed to merge with the air, like summertime fireworks. As the rabbits began storing the cherry tomatoes, Sejin watched them and felt proud. These little rabbits were now capable of helping their parents, the farmer's white rabbits. Feeling tired, Sejin knew it was time to rest and recharge for the next day. He gathered some leaves and arranged them into a comfortable makeshift bed. Using the leaves as a pillow and a blanket, he settled for a peaceful sleep. Sejin was asleep when a status window suddenly appeared, triggering a new quest. It demanded that he offer 100 magical cherry tomatoes to the tower manager or face death. Sejin woke up and quickly carried out the task to avoid death. The status window confirmed that the tower manager was satisfied. In return, he received a job-related skill that allowed him to harvest fruits in optimal condition, even if slightly unripe or overripe. This made his work easier and faster. However, another message interrupted his rest, demanding 200 tomatoes with no reward mention, only the threat of death. Sejun grew angry at the tower manager's endless greed. The number of tomatoes required kept increasing. The final demand for 500 tomatoes without a reward was too much. Sejun refused, rebelling against the tower manager for the first time. It marked a significant moment in his diary of being lost in the tower. A quest suddenly appeared, demanding that Sejun offer magical cherry tomatoes to the tower manager. The catch: there was no reward for completing the quest, but the penalty for refusal was death. Sejun's frustration grew as he realized he had already provided countless tomatoes. He couldn't understand why they expected him to give up even more, especially when he and the rabbits needed food to survive. The tower manager's message came up again, saying it wasn't the problem of the tower farmers. Sejun couldn't understand how they could disregard his efforts. The manager claimed he only planted the seeds, treating Sejun's hard work as unimportant. This made Sejun even more determined to resist. Sejun firmly refused the quest. He didn't want to hand over the crops he had worked so hard to grow to someone who didn't appreciate his efforts. The tower manager grew flustered, realizing that Sejun would not comply. Meanwhile, Sejun walked away and started harvesting green onions and grilling fish. The messages continued to appear, questioning his decision and emphasizing a possibility of death. Sejun stayed strong, knowing that giving in would only continue the unfair treatment he had endured. Suddenly, Sejun expressed his frustrations to the tower manager. He pointed out that if they claimed to be the tower manager, they should be a responsible employer, appreciating their tower farmers' hard work and dedication. Sejun ate some of the magical cherry tomatoes, making the tower manager angry. They threatened to kill him if he didn't fulfill the quest. Sejun asked permission to keep 5 tomatoes to feed the rabbits, and the manager agreed. Sejun felt relieved, realizing that the manager was trying to apologize in their own way. He was glad that things were simpler than he had thought. Days passed, and it was day 61 since Sejun got lost. It was the 4th blue moon, and Sejun was hiding, munching on tomatoes. He knew that high MP could help withstand monster roars, so he ate the tomatoes to boost his MP. Sejun wished time would go by quickly, hoping to avoid a similar situation. Suddenly, he spotted a blue light infusing the tomatoes and sweet potato leaves. Intrigued, he approached and discovered that the sweet potatoes were imbued with the energy of the blue moon. These tower-cultivated sweet potatoes were nutritious and tasty. Still, they tasted even better with the moon's energy and permanently increased strength by 0.05 MP. Sejun was the cultivator and tower farmer of Park Sejun. The sweet potatoes had a 30-day shelf life and were ranked E. Excitement filled Sejun as he anticipated enjoying these flavorful and empowering sweet potatoes. Sejun harvested a special sweet potato infused with the energy of the blue moon. It boosted his job experience and proficiency level, earning him 50 experience points. Suddenly, 2 quests appeared, demanding that he offer the tower manager sweet potatoes with the blue moon energy. Refusing meant certain death, so Sejun reluctantly completed the quests, offering magical cherry tomatoes instead. The tower manager seemed satisfied but muttered about Sejun's delay in delivering the sweet potatoes. Sejun quickly promised to bring them later, and the manager pretended to agree. As Sejun held the sweet potato and cherry tomato in his hands, he couldn't resist the temptation. He decided to eat them. The moment he took a bite, he was greeted with an explosion of freshness and sweetness. The flavors danced on his tongue, making him feel as if he was experiencing a festival in his mouth. Little did he know that according to the status window, consuming the magical cherry tomato containing the energy of the blue moon permanently increased his MP by 0.05. Unable to contain his excitement, Sejun grilled the sweet potato over the fire. Unfortunately, he realized that he didn't have any tinfoil. Still, he found solace in having some all-purpose onion leaves with him. Patiently, he waited for the sweet potato to cook, savoring the anticipation of a delicious meal. It was a moment of pure happiness for him. As the sun set, a family of rabbits came out of their house. They were surprised to see Sejun there cooking his meal. Sejun called out to them, feeling that it was the perfect timing to share the sweet potato with the energy of the blue moon. He told them it wasn't much, but they could enjoy it together. However, the husband rabbit hesitated and stopped the approach of his children. Sejun asked what was wrong, and the husband rabbit explained that since there was only one sweet potato, Sejun should be the one to eat it. Sejun felt touched by the rabbit's words, but little did the rabbit know that Sejun had already eaten one earlier, discreetly. Sejun began to eat the sweet potato while the rabbit family watched him intently. Suddenly, he couldn't bear the intense heat and spat it out. The baby rabbits quickly grabbed the discarded piece and tried to eat it, only to spit it out themselves due to the scorching heat, causing their tongues to hurt. It was an unexpected turn of events. In Sejun's diary of getting lost in the tower, he noted the fiery hot meal he had experienced that day. Sejun gathered everyone's attention and announced an important task. They were going to plant sweet potato sprouts, and the baby rabbits were not allowed to eat them for the time being. Despite their protests, Sejun knew they had eaten most of the sweet potatoes. To motivate them, he promised an even tastier dinner with sweet potatoes if they helped plant the sprouts. Sejun planned to expand the planting area to grow more sprouts. The mention of special snacks got the baby rabbits excited, eagerly looking forward to their reward. They began planting the sweet potatoes as instructed. Sejin asked one of the baby rabbits to leave a green onion for seed collection. Sejin realized they needed to plant seeds first as he looked at it. The baby rabbits worked hard, diligently planting and watering the sprouts. Meanwhile, Sejin focused on harvesting cherry tomatoes. According to the status window, he successfully harvested ripe magic cherry tomatoes. His harvesting proficiency slightly increased to level 2. He gained a small boost in job experience points and obtained 10 experience points, leveling up and earning a bonus stat. The status window showed his job experience points were full and ready to level up from Tower Farmer level F to Tower Farmer level E. His job level increased, strengthening his job characteristics. In level 8, Sejin's job level increased, making harvesting easier for him. He decided to make some snacks while noticing that the tower manager curiously observed his cooking. Undeterred, Sejin cooked the tomatoes and called the rabbits to enjoy a special treat: roasted cherry tomatoes skewered on cleaned piranha bones. The cooking process made the tomatoes sweeter and softer. Sejin advised everyone to blow on the hot skewers before taking a bite. With enough sweet potato sprouts planted, Sejin happily dug up some sweet potatoes for dinner. To his delight, he found 4 potatoes with just 1 pole. According to the status window, these were nutritious and tasty strength sweet potatoes cultivated in the tower. Consuming one would break down 10 grams of body fat and increase strength by 0.1 for 10 minutes. Multiple effects could be applied within an hour, up to a maximum of 10. Even non-awakened individuals would experience a fat breakdown and improved bowel movement when consuming these potatoes. The tower farmer Park Sejin was credited as the cultivator of these special sweet potatoes. They had a shelf life of 30 days and were classified as rank E. Sejin harvested 15 sweet potatoes with 5 sweet potatoes per tree. It was a successful first harvest, and he wanted to use every potato. After planting the sweet potato sprouts, a message appeared indicating that the sowing level 1 effect increased the likelihood of the sprouts' growth. Sejin's proficiency in sowing also slightly improved. An idea crossed Sejin's mind. If what he had just done counted as sowing, he realized he needed to plant all the sprouts to further increase his skill level. He stopped the others from planting, deciding to take charge himself. Meanwhile, the black dragon was eating one of the sweet potatoes, but to his surprise, it didn't taste very pleasant. He wondered what went wrong, as humans seemed to enjoy the potatoes with their sweet flavor. He wanted to see what the humans, including Sejin and the rabbits, were doing then. Using a crystal ball, he peered into their activities and witnessed their joyous meal of roasted potatoes. This made him angry, as he realized they had roasted the sweet potatoes without him. The black dragon was none other than Aileen Fratani, the tower manager. While Sejin enjoys his time with the rabbits, a sudden message appears, triggering an additional quest. It stated that Sejin needed to present a roasted strength sweet potato to the tower manager. Surprisingly, there was no promised reward, but refusing the quest meant certain death. Another message followed, with the tower manager urging Sejin to provide the roasted sweet potato. It made clear that there would be no escape from the consequences of refusal. Sejin contemplated the situation and informed the manager that only 1 sweet potato was left. He asked if there was any possible reward for completing the quest. A revised message appeared in response, stating that the tower manager had reconsidered the quest. Another message promptly followed, emphasizing that Sejin must offer the tower manager a roasted strength sweet potato. The reward, this time, would be a skill related to his job. Refusing the quest meant facing the consequences of death. Sejin decided to offer the sweet potato and completed the quest successfully. Upon opening the reward, he discovered he had acquired the level 1 seed store skill. This skill allowed him to purchase items at the seed and shop once every 30 days. Excited and amazed by this newfound ability to buy things within the tower, he activated the seed store skill. A message appeared, notifying him that his level 1 seed store skill was activated. Curious, Sejin checked the transaction history of customer Park Sejin, only to find no recorded transactions. He asked about the transaction history, realizing that he had none. He also wondered how he could make purchases since he had no money, suggesting the possibility of bartering. In response, a message expressed their pleasure in offering entry-level services to customer Park Sejin. They congratulated him on becoming the first rookie-tier customer of the seed store. They informed him that they would provide him with 1 tower coin. 1 tower coin was deposited into Sejin's seed bank account. He was pleasantly surprised and considered the seed store incredibly kind and the best. The appearance of 1 tower coin in the status window indicated that it was the currency used within the tower. Sejin wondered about the market price of the tower coin, estimating it to be around 1 million won. Excited to explore the seed store, Sejin contemplated what he should buy. According to the status window, as a rookie-tier customer, 3 types of seeds would be randomly displayed for sale. He could only purchase 1 seed at his current level. The options presented were 1,000 cabbage seeds for 0.1 tower coin, 1,000 red pepper seeds for 0.1 tower coin, and 1,000 carrot seeds for 0.1 tower coin. Considering his options, Sejun realized that the seed store, as its name suggested, only offered seeds for sale. He also noticed that the cost of 0.1 tower coin translated to approximately 100,000 won per 1,000 seeds, which seemed quite expensive to him. Eliminating the red pepper and cabbage seeds, since he couldn't make Kaisejunhae in the tower, he chose the carrot seeds. The rabbits seemed happy when they heard about the carrot seeds, confirming Sejun's choice. He purchased 1,000 carrot seeds and 0.1 tower coin was deducted from his seed bank account. Additionally, he earned 1 seed shop mileage, which could be used to raise Sejun's level. It would require 100 mileage points for him to level up. A message appeared saying Park Sejun couldn't revisit the seed store in 30 days. He found it strange that the pocket holding the tower coin felt more valuable than the seeds themselves. He wondered why he felt satisfied with his purchase. Sejun's diary of getting lost in the tower noted that he had obtained a new carrot seed from his first trade at the seed store. Excitedly, they all began planting the seeds while a bee watched them afar. Everyone was resting and Sejun realized it had been a few days since he planted the carrots. Although the seeds hadn't sprouted yet, the rabbits had been gathered around the planting area all day. Sejun wondered if the rabbits liked carrots that much. Deciding to take a nap, he planned to pollinate the flowers and harvest onions in the afternoon. However, his peaceful rest was disturbed when a bug appeared. Instantly annoyed, Sejun thought it was a monster disguised as a bug, but looked cute. Curious to know its name, he checked the status window and discovered it was called a poison honeybee. Shocked by the name, Sejun asked the rabbits if the bug was dangerous. However, the rabbits left him alone, which made him angry. How could they abandon him with a potentially dangerous bug? A message appeared, revealing that the tower manager warned about poison honeybees. These bees were carnivorous and hunted monsters with poisonous stingers, feeding on their flesh. Their stings were highly dangerous, so avoiding them was the best action. Confused, Sejun questioned how they could still be considered bees if they ate flesh. As he was frightened, Sejun often shooed away the poison honeybee whenever it approached him. As the bee came, he walked backward and ended up falling. While on the ground, he noticed a branch with a flower, so he swatted it toward the bee. Surprisingly, the bee seemed to enjoy it and started sucking the nectar from the flower, which puzzled Sejun because the status window mentioned that they were carnivorous. Sejun called out to the bee, suggesting it could eat the other flowers if hungry. The bee then flew towards the other flowers. Sejun was delighted because he didn't have to pollinate the cherry tomatoes. Meanwhile, the rabbits peered out behind rocks and Sejun noticed them. He expressed frustration at how they had run away but now dared to return. The rabbits approached him, wanting to touch him, but Sejun didn't want them to and told them to stop. Despite his fear, the bee came back to him. Sejun nervously asked if the bee wasn't full yet, fearing it might sting him. In his diary of getting lost in the tower, Sejun noted that it seemed like they had gained a new member of their little family. Many days had passed, and it was now the 120th day since they got lost. Despite the passage of time, Sejun continued to carve the days onto the rock. Everyone worked hard with Sejun planting and the rabbit couple watering the plants. However, the baby rabbits were playing around near Sejun, which made him angry. After a while, he observed the baby rabbits from a distance and realized they were enjoying themselves. He understood that it was natural for them to play while young. The poison honeybee approached him again, and he asked if it had already consumed all the nectar. Several weeks had passed since the poison honeybee had arrived. It would leave in the morning to collect nectar and return to the forest outside the cave in the evening. During lunchtime, Sejun called everyone to gather. They enjoyed their meal together, and Sejun noticed that the bee seemed to be staying with them rather than returning to its own group. The bee started spitting honey onto the green onion a few days ago. According to the status window, the honey onion was a delicious combination of the grilled green onion's savory flavor and the sweet stickiness of the poison bee's honey. Sejun and the rabbits savored the taste of the green onion and honey, finding it incredibly sweet. Sejun expressed his initial fear of the bee, thinking it was poisonous. However, he now realized that the bee had played a significant role in expanding their honey production. He shared his gratitude with everyone, saying that thanks to the bee, they would soon have so much honey that they wouldn't envy bears. A message appeared indicating that the tower manager was pleased with their progress. Sejun mentioned that they could harvest so much honey in a few months that they would never feel jealous of bears again. As Sejun looked at the marks representing the days spent in the cave, he suddenly realized that the blue moon was approaching. He felt worried, hoping it would pass without any trouble this time. Today marked his 121st day since getting lost, and he had prepared a stock of cherry tomatoes to ensure they had enough food during the blue moon. Observing that the poison honeybee no longer visited, he assumed that even she must be making preparations for the upcoming event. The rabbits seemed particularly anxious that day. Sejun warned them it was almost time and advised them to return home. The parent rabbits quickly scurried away, bidding him goodbye. Sejun was taken aback by how the parent rabbits left their babies behind, especially when the blue moon was imminent. Before he could say anything, the blue moon rose and two monsters descended from above. Fear consumed him as he watched their arrival. He couldn't help but wonder what was happening in this world. Sejun was left confused, realizing that what he thought were monsters with baby rabbits. He questioned how they had grown into adult rabbits so quickly, noticing their color changes. They explained that it was their 5th blue moon since birth, akin to a coming-of-age ceremony. Overwhelmed with emotion, Sejun couldn't help but shed tears, fearing something had gone wrong. The rabbits offered him comfort and affection, soothing his worries. Touched by their gesture, he returned their kindness with kisses. The following day, the parent rabbits came out of their house and Sejun called them over to see their family together. He watched as they hugged each other affectionately and felt inspired to prepare a special feast to celebrate their coming of age. Sejun became curious when he saw the items carried by the adult rabbits. Based on their status window, the 4 white rabbits had a sickle, a cart, a watering can, and a shovel. He understood that these items were meant for adult farmer rabbits and that he couldn't borrow them. He also observed that the black rabbit carried a hammer, which puzzled him since it didn't seem like a farming tool. According to the status window, the black rabbit's name was the Black Rabbit Warrior. As the rabbits continued their work of planting, watering, and harvesting, Sejun stored the cherry tomatoes that the adult rabbits gathered. As he observed them, he couldn't help but be touched by how the once playful baby rabbits had grown up to assist their parents. However, the Black Warrior Rabbit seemed to spend days eating and resting without assigned tasks. Sejun pondered the Warrior Rabbit's role, realizing that no monsters in the cave posed a threat to the farm. He also considered that the hammer, the Warrior Rabbit's tool, wasn't suitable for farming. An idea suddenly struck him. The Black Rabbit could hunt in the pond, as hunting could be seen as a form of combat. This way, he could contribute to the group. Sejun guided the Black Rabbit, explaining that he would lure the fish with a torch, and the Black Rabbit would catch them. He encouraged the Black Rabbit to show him the power of a warrior. They began their endeavor, with Sejun placing the torch on the water to attract the fish and the Black Rabbit using the hammer to catch them. However, to their disappointment, the hammer broke, leaving only fish bones and a small amount of flesh for them to eat. Sejun assured the Black Rabbit that he would improve with practice and tried to lift his spirits as the Black Rabbit appeared saddened by the outcome. All the rabbits diligently carried out their assigned tasks, and Sejun continued to help the Black Rabbit practice catching fish. Gradually, they began to settle into their roles. On the 125th day, the seed store opened again, as indicated by the status window. A message appeared, revealing 3 random seeds for sale that day. However, Sejun could only afford 1 based on his current level. He felt a surge of excitement as he contemplated which seed to choose. According to the status window, the options were 10 watermelon seeds for 5 tower coins, 200 waxy corn seeds for 0.5 tower coins, and 50 sweet pumpkin seeds for just 1 tower coin. The prices of the listed seeds took aback Sejun, as they were significantly higher than before. With only 0.9 tower coins, he could only afford to buy the waxy corn seeds. He pondered what he should do if the prices continued to rise, realizing that he couldn't afford anything in the future. Furthermore, he had no means of earning more money in this place. There are 3 main methods for earning rewards in the tower. The first is receiving rewards after clearing a floor. Still, the amount is relatively high and only given once per floor. Hence, the actual profit hunters earn is not significant. A second method is hunting monsters and selling their bodies to the wandering merchant or the store on the first floor. This is considered the best source of income for hunters, as it allows for continuous profits. The third method is completing quests and receiving rewards. Sejun contemplated these options and realized that the quest rewards varied considerably, making it difficult to determine the most beneficial way. Clearing the floors seemed impossible as he couldn't escape his situation. He considered the alternative, which was the heist-level quest given by the tower manager. With this in mind, he called out to the tower manager, asking if he could receive tower coins as a reward for completing the quest immediately. The tower manager responded through the status window, stating that they didn't understand what he meant but would explain it later when he had grown up. Sejun needed clarification on the tower manager's lack of knowledge about tower coins and the mention of growing up. He wondered how old the tower manager was, and the manager replied with a secretive response. Sejun asked how many more years he needed to finally grow up, to which the tower manager revealed that he needed to be at least 300 years old. Sejun couldn't believe it and asked if the tower manager was joking. He would have to keep track of all the tower coins he had from now on and pass them down to future generations. Eventually, his 7th-generation grandchildren would receive the coins, but he wasn't in a situation where he could have descendants. Sejun realized that getting angry would only make him lose in this situation. He decided to prioritize purchasing what he needed for his immediate survival. The first item he could afford was corn seeds, which was a good choice. Corn could be steamed or grilled, and he could even grind it into flour to make something similar to bread, although he was curious if it would work. He chose to buy the 200 waxy corn seeds. According to the status window, 0.5 tower coins were deducted from Sejun's bank account, and he earned 5 seed shop mileage. He'll be able to use the store again in 30 days. After purchasing the waxy corn seeds, Sejun and the rabbits decided to take a break and eat something. They enjoyed a meal of grilled fish, and the honeybee appeared as they savored their food. Sejun warmly welcomed her. Noticing she had been spending much time in the cave lately, he wondered if it was alright for her not to return to her own home, but he assured her that she was welcome to stay with him. Suddenly, the honeybee became aware of something above them and started searching for it. Sejun also noticed the movement and thought it might be a monster, causing the black rabbit to prepare for a fight. However, a cat quickly intervened, explaining that he wasn't a shameless cat who had come to steal their food. Sejun questioned why the cat had come, and the cat descended while asking if he was a customer named Park Sejun. It was Theo, the wandering merchant cat. After that day, Sejun said that he encountered a wandering merchant cat when he got lost in the tower. Now Theo stood before him wearing a cape ready to conduct business. After Theo introduced himself, Park Sejun remembered that he had heard about the wandering merchants appearing once people went up the tower level. He didn't expect to see one, let alone expect it to be a cat. Park Sejun watches his shiny eyes, soft, chubby cheeks, and cute jelly paws. Theo's appearance made Park Sejun squeal from the cuteness, but he still thinks it's a scam. Still, Sejun is a big fan of cats, so he can't let this slide. Afterwards, Sejun informed Theo that he was already talking to the one he was looking for, so Sejun asked him about his intention. Afterward, Theo explains by pointing out that Sejun is the new rookie who recently bought seeds from the seed store, so he came there to meet Sejun and offer him good deals. This intrigued Sejun, so he's looking forward to what it might be. So Theo scrambled into his bag ready to sell goods to Sejun, but his tummy growled so that it embarrassed him. Theo apologized to Sejun and said he hadn't eaten anything throughout his journey. He was so embarrassed to show such a pathetic image in front of a customer that he was shy about it. On the other hand, this gave Park Sejun a wicked idea that made him grin like a creep. After that, he called out for Theo and offered him a roasted fish, showing the hungry Theo a golden grilled fish with a comforting face. Theo's eyes sparkled at the sight of the delicious fish, wanting to accept the offer badly. However, doing so made him a shameful merchant, so he took down the offer and told Sejun that he could not touch the customer's food. But Park Sejun provokes him by showing the fish closer to Theo and tempting him by describing how sweet and tender the grilled fish meat is and has a fishy flavor that cats couldn't miss. Theo couldn't help but drool at the delicious smell of the grilled fish, and soon enough, he managed to eat so many fishes until his tummy was content. After eating 5 fish, Theo thanked Park Sejun for his generosity by giving him grilled fish. He was very thankful and he didn't know how to thank him. Theo was about to continue with the deal he talked about and the reason for his visit in the first place, but Sejun suddenly told him to pay him 0.5 tower coin for the 5 grilled fish he just ate earlier. This took Theo off guard, thinking that the fishes were free because of Sejun's pity for him. But Park Sejun, being a manipulative person and business-minded, told Theo that there's no such thing as freebies in the world. Not only that, but he also pointed out that Theo was only there because he was about to make a deal with Sejun, so he told him that it would be shameful for Theo to eat from the customer's fish and run away after. A black warrior rabbit was on Theo's back, fidgeting with his hammer, and the other rabbits were standing near them as if intimidating Theo. With teary eyes and deceived feelings, he is forced to pay the 0.5 tower coins to pay off his meal, to which Sejun can't help but celebrate his tiny earning. At the same time, Theo is devastated and milked to the core. Theo was feeling sad as he was deceived, expecting that he would take the customer's money and not the customer taking his. Theo felt hopeless but didn't let himself be miserable, so he stood up, ready to return his money. He opened his bag and laid all the things he had in his bag one by one. Theo considers his valuable items as hot stuff from another floor. It was a double-sided tumbler that cost 5 tower coins, a mini fan costing 5 tower coins, and a portable hand warmer for 5 tower coins. Theo was confident enough to sell these items to the rookie Sejun, but Sejun, he knew these items well. He asks Theo if the items he is selling are from the outside world, to which Theo replies that it was, impressed that Sejun knows, not knowing that Sejun is someone from the outside 10 years ago. After that, Theo introduced the items individually, starting with the tumbler. He told Sejun that the tumbler has preservation magic that could handle hot or cold stuff, and even before a long period, the temperature is still maintained. After the tumbler, he introduced the mini fan, saying it has wind and magic enchantment. Whenever the user presses the switch, it will automatically turn on. But he interfered with his sales talk before Theo could continue introducing the items to Sejun. He straightforwardly told Theo that the items he brought were full of trash. Theo didn't expect Sejun would say it, trusting the items are valuable by many adventurers, so he fought back by saying that the items from the tower were not trashed, offended by how Sejun belittled the items' values. So with that, Sejun told Theo that he is actually someone from the outside tower, so he knows what the items are. With that statement alone, Theo was upset that he couldn't believe it. After that, Sejun bent down and looked at the items sold. He told Theo that the tumbler didn't have any magic inside it. Still, it was just an ordinary tumbler that prevented heat transfer by blocking contact from the outside. Park Sejun also informed Theo that the mini fan and the portable hand warmer would stop in a few hours since it would run out of batteries, and just then, the fan stopped working. Still, Theo defended the items he brought. He exclaimed that his items were real because Scarum said there was magic in these items. But seeing that the fan stopped functioning, Theo felt bitter and couldn't accept that what Sejun said was true. Park Sejun thinks that Theo was scammed by a punk named Scarum, who sold these items to Theo, while Theo was on his knees, feeling depressed for trusting Scarum, not knowing that he was just a victim of Scarum's kindness and super-coded words. Theo can't help but cry out loud after he paid his remaining tower coins to the scammer Scarum that he lost his cool in front of his customer and was adding Nia at the end of his every sentence. This didn't go unnoticed by Sejun, and he thinks it was cute. Afterward, to comfort the victimized Theo, Sejun offers his ears to know what happened in the beginning. With that, Theo explained that he came from the 75th floor of the tower, one of the many neutral zones. For a long time, Theo admired one of the fair maiden cats named Meryl in their cat village called Granar. He persuaded Meryl by giving her a fish bouquet and asking her to date him. But as a fair and elegant kitty, Meryl turned down his offer because she hated the smell of a cheap rice fish slapping the bouquet from Theo's hands. Theo didn't expect this treatment and was upset that his hard work went to waste, so he asked her why she did that. But Meryl was just giving him the cold shoulder, not replying to his question or minding what she did. A few minutes later, a firm cat appeared and loudly told Theo to know his rightful place, disappointed to see a lowly class cat seduce his Meryl. Theo turned around and saw the son of the richest cat in their village, Oren, holding a delicious roasted salmon. He shows his luxury in front of Theo and the others by giving it to his date. He also told Theo that Meryl doesn't like low-grade rice fish and only accepts high-quality salmon because Meryl doesn't like greasy food. It makes her conscious of her weight. With Meryl's sparkly eyes, she indeed loves the salmon, disappointing Theo even more. With a smug attitude, the rich cat Oren returned with Meryl in his arms, inviting her to his house to slice some salmon steak alone. But Theo didn't give up and stopped the couple on their way. With a dramatic effect, Theo asked Meryl about the memories they shared together. Asking her about what they are isn't a lie. But after Theo finished his statement, Meryl let go of his hand and told Theo firmly that he was getting ahead of himself by assuming they had a spark when all she ever did was smile twice at him. He got all delusional while also following her, even though she told him she didn't like him, that it went to the point where it annoyed her so much. After that, she also lets Theo know she hates poor cats that smell like cheap rice fish, like Theo the most. And with that, after Meryl went away with Oren, Theo's heart broke apart, which made him flee away from their village and decide to become a wandering merchant with the determination to become rich and get his revenge on Oren and Meryl. Theo even bought the necessary license and equipment to become an official wandering merchant using his lifelong savings worth 50 tower coins. He was about to buy something from the peddler with the remaining tower coins to resell them, but that's when he came across Scarum. Before Theo could speak with the peddler, Scarum introduced himself to Theo and offered him goods and services that if there's something Theo wants, Scarum is the guy to approach. After that, they sat in the bar and ordered drinks as they negotiated about the items from outside the tower. Scarum told him that the items were precious and tipped Theo that if he was to sell the items on the upper floor, he would make a good profit since the creatures from the upper floor collect these items as a hobby. Theo was impressed that Scarum knew this stuff, but he wondered why he was selling it to him at the lowest price. Scarum replied that he liked Theo's determination. As a senior merchant, he wanted to train their junior merchants to improve, and if Theo refuses his offer, he can always give it to some other merchants as a tactic to rush Theo's decision. It obviously works on Theo since he blurted out by telling him he'll buy it in a heartbeat, and to keep Theo interested. Scarum told him he would give him a bonus by handing out a piece of paper. It was a map with the location of the new user of the seed store, which turned out to be Park Sejun. According to Scarum, a new member tend to be good at making a great profit if Theo's lucky enough. In exchange for this information, Scarum told Theo that their beer would be on Theo's, to which he agreed without any complaint. Oblivious as he is, Theo didn't know that Scarum's words were just a scam. Theo expected that he could sell the items that he even starved himself after spending all of his tower coins to buy them, just to find out it was all trash. Aside from that, his customer Sejun even took his last money. While Theo was having a tantrum, Sejun came up with an idea after knowing that Theo was a pushover. He could use Theo to his advantage. Sejun wanted to cheer up Theo by offering him toasted fish to eat. Still, Theo refused since he might have to pay for it later, not falling on Sejun's tactics again. But Sejun insisted and even told Theo that he'll consider everything he eats as a treat in exchange for his services to work with him on the farm. With that, Sejun put on his diary that he found a business partner to work with. Theo didn't expect to hear that Sejun was interested in working with him. So Sejun told him that he needed a merchant to sell his items to the other humans or anyone. Though Theo feels like he isn't good enough for the job, especially about his past experience of getting scammed and looked down on, considering himself a noob and useless as a wandering merchant. But Park Sejun thinks otherwise, seeing the great potential in Theo. Even though he makes little mistakes, Theo is the only business partner Sejun can have. Despite his story and past, he still thinks Theo could become a great business partner. With that, Sejun attempts to persuade Theo with a relaxing, tropical beach chair. They sat and chilled in the chair while the bunnies served them like kings, fanning them for cool air and refreshing drinks. After a while of relaxing, Sejun asked for confirmation if the reason why Theo couldn't open a deal was that he was deceived and got no money left in him. Theo agreed, and after he did, Sejun jerked up and exclaimed that it was why he was making a business proposal to him. That way, they could have a win-win situation, which is advantageous for both of them. Park Sejun explained again that his proposal was simple. Theo needed to sell his items to people and Sejun would give him sales revenue incentives. Theo doesn't know what incentive means, so Sejun explains that he needs to sell the items above the prices Sejun will set. Theo is free to sell the items at a higher price, especially since Theo has the ability for it. That way, Theo would get 3 to 5% of the items he sells. Theo thinks about and thinks that the 3 to 5% is too low for him. Its condition is too unfavorable for her. He despises not being deceived by another scam again as he aggressively slurped at the refreshing drink. But Park Sejun has more tricks in his pockets and tells Theo that he hasn't told him the important thing yet. With that, Sejun called out a couple of rabbits as they brought Theo the golden roasted fish. The fish served as part of the terms and conditions of Sejun's proposed contract he offered to Theo. Theo's mouth drooled like a waterfall seeing the mountain of grilled fish at his side, making him reconsider Sejun's persuasion. With that, Sejun asked Theo again what he thought about the contract and if he wanted to sign it with him. But Theo was traumatized from his past and kept thinking about everyone who did him wrong. He constantly reminds himself to be a smart cat and not let anyone deceive him again. Still, a strong, delicious smell of the 20 roasted fish meat is enough for him to reconsider Sejun's offer big time. Hearing this made Sejun grin like a wicked witch when his plan worked as expected. To rush the contract, Sejun told Theo he was in a good mood and added 5 more grilled fish. This made Theo feel like he was in heaven, seeing the golden fishes stacked and just a paw away from him. Then Sejun informed him that besides the weekly pay, Theo could eat as much grilled fish as much as he wanted while he stayed with them. Hearing this made Theo so happy, and Sejun didn't let this opportunity pass and asked Theo for a piece of paper and a pen. After getting it, they laid the paper on the rock, and Sejun got into business immediately, listing all the terms and conditions he needed to do in the contract. After that, both parties signed with their fingerprint and paw prints to indicate that they agreed to the written contract and its contents. After signing the contract, Theo didn't realize he was signing a lifetime contract and got too excited. He almost regretted his decision, but it's too late to turn back now that the contract is officially signed and transitioned into a digital document that can't be destroyed. It's the first time Sejun sees and makes a contract during his stay in the tower. He only heard from the other awakened people from the tower that a contract is one of the most important documents that can't be destroyed easily unless exterminated. He initially wondered why the tower manager made it hard to erase or tamper the document, but now that he has one, he understands that it's more efficient for the contractor and contractee. It is also more valid that way. Meanwhile, Theo is depressed and instantly regrets doing his first contract that way. Now that he can't do anything about it, Theo asked for clarification on the 4th clause of the contract's special conditions. He was confused about why he was required to speak in his grammar dialect when talking to people. The accent embarrassed him. But Sejun has a clever idea for it and tells Theo that he'll only understand it when the time comes. Sejun reached his hand to Theo for a handshake. However, Theo slapped his hand away, saying it was still uncertain that he'll sell well, especially with the 1st clause of the contract's special condition, which said that Theo could terminate the contract if he couldn't sell well. But Sejun didn't listen to his negative statements and trusted that Theo would sell well. He even calls his sales cat Theo, the resourceful, and gives him a head pat. The title that Sejun gave him pleased his ears as he relaxed into Sejun's petting. After that, Theo asked what he sells as a merchant. Sejun replied that all Theo would sell were sweet cherry tomatoes. This made Theo wonder since the cherry tomatoes aren't something grand to sell to people, but Sejun showed him that his tomatoes aren't ordinary. He looked at the tomatoes' stats that the tomatoes would increase 0.1 MP for 10 minutes. He wondered how much he could sell each tomato for. If he got lucky, he might be able to sell it for at least 0.01 tower coin, intending to sell to the awakeners who have recently come to the tower to also deceive them. But Sejun replied that he intended to sell the tomatoes for 0.05 tower coin per piece. The price is too big for Theo. He already knew nobody would be interested in an expensive tomato. But for some reason, Theo thinks it's also a good thing, since it's written in the special condition that the contract will be terminated if the month's total sales revenue falls short of 5 tower coins. Aside from that, he can still eat grilled fish in the meantime. Afterward, Theo asked Sejun how many tomatoes he should bring for the first contract sale. Sejun replied that he would be carrying 1,000 tomatoes already prepared by the rabbits for Theo's departure and first mission. Sejun also included 20 faces of grilled fish as his first weekly payment. Afterwards, Sejun wondered how Theo could carry all of these, so Theo explained that he would simply put it on his item called the bundle, where preservation magic was cast, as well as space expansion and magic that would make it lightweight. Thanks to his item, he can carry and keep many things in it and remain in its original state for a long time. He tossed a purple blanket on the stacked food and items to sell. Once he does it, the items are teleported inside the bag where Theo can carry them on his shoulder. After preparing his things, he bid farewell to Sejun and the others before climbing up the cave again and fulfilling his first mission. A few days later, on the 38th floor of the tower, a group of people are fighting off a giant spider-looking monster. They were fighting it together, with mages and knights all at once. Then their guild leader, Kim Dongshik, managed to slice the monster's head with one swift move of his sword. His team cheered for him and praised his skills, celebrating their victory. After fighting off the monster, Dongshik shushed everyone's praises and told them to wrap up. He also mentioned that Jessica did not cheat like the last time she did, for some reason, to which Jessica replied very cutely. While looking at his teammates doing the necessary stuff in the monster, Dongshik sensed something else in the bush. He turned around and readied his sword for any possible monster to emerge, but it was just Theo, the wandering merchant. He greeted the humans and sold them the goods immediately with his grammar accent. Dongshik didn't expect to see a cat as his teammates flocked around him immediately, rightly assuming the cat was a wandering merchant. The girls in the team that Theo's naeyoo are cute to hear. Because of that, Theo understood that Sejun was right about the grammar accent intriguing the humans. With that, Theo showed them the items he sells, cherry tomatoes. The humans looked at the fruit intently, wondering what it could do. But Dongshik thinks it's a waste of money if all Theo would sell is cherry tomato food, not bread or meat. Theo got his paws ready and told them that the cherry tomato he was selling wasn't ordinary. It was different than the others. So he told the humans to look at the tomato's stats to see what he was talking about. With that, the humans obeyed and read the stats. They were already intrigued, but as soon Theo told them that it cost 0.05 tower coin, they were turned off and exclaimed that they would rather spend that much money on types of equipment than something like it. They turned down the tomatoes and were about to go on their way, except for one of the females from the team that was more intrigued to know that the tomatoes can make them lose 10 grams of fat when eaten. With that statement alone, the other members stopped and were intrigued about what the tomatoes could do. They went back and checked to confirm it, and as soon as they saw it was real, they flocked around Theo, wanting to buy hundreds of it, and some wanted all of it. Because most of the ladies wanted to buy it, the other members also wanted to try it. Meanwhile, Sejun is happily harvesting his sweet cherry tomatoes with the help of the rabbits. He assumed that Theo must have met some hunters by then and knew they would hesitate to buy it. Because at first, cherry tomatoes simply look like an item to boost one's magic power, but eating them can automatically dissolve 10 grams of fat and revitalize one's body, the best diet product that nobody else can find elsewhere. Aside from that, the tomatoes don't have any side effects, so there's nothing to worry about. Park Sejun is happy with his products and trusts the soil he planted them on. Meanwhile, Theo immediately sold all the products in just one small group. Even he can't believe that he can be sold out an item. While Theo hasn't returned to the farm yet, Sejun is busy with his errand. He was on top of the boulder looking down at the crops as he counted the harvest with his assistant rabbit. It was 70% of the harvest they did that day. Only 700 have sprouted out of the 1,000 carrot seeds that Park Sejun bought from the seed store. And out of the 1,200 magic cherry tomato seeds Park Sejun and the rabbits planted after harvesting them from the plants, only 732 have sprouted and are still growing. The farm's germination rate of the corn and sweet potato seeds Park Sejun bought from the seed store and personally planted is about 60 to 70%, as well as the germination rate of the carrots and cherry tomatoes. Not a bad percentage. Sejun hoped their crops would sprout more, but he thought his tower farmer level was low or the land and soil were not fertile because it was inside a cave. But still, Sejun won't give up and will always keep trying until he finds a better way to cultivate them. Aside from that, they can now earn tower coins thanks to Theo. All they need to do is harvest as many crops as possible. Park Sejun is glad and proud of them, but a lighted torch got his attention, so he looked back and saw a black warrior rabbit doing his errands too. The lighted torch lured in a bunch of fishes from the cave pond, and with that, the black warrior rabbit knocked them out to the land with a swift swing of his hammer. With that, their protein dinner is now secured. Seeing this made Sejun proud of the black warrior rabbit too. He has improved his hunting skills. Suddenly, the black warrior rabbit's body shined, indicating that it is leveling up. Sejun congratulated his leveling up because it was his first time seeing the black warrior rabbit level up. Unlike the other rabbits who help in the crops, Sejun sees them level up more often. The other rabbits also gave the black rabbit applause as Sejun proposed to take a break with a refreshing coffee, holding the tumbler that Theo left behind, thinking it was trash like what Sejun told him. But in reality, the tumbler got some hidden ground coffee sachets that Sejun missed so much. According to him, the goblin Scaram that scammed Theo didn't seem to open the tumbler before handing the item to him. And if Theo sells this coffee separately from the tumbler, then Sijin must have spent his last remaining earnings on it. He opened a sachet of coffee and poured it into his water bottle, thanking that the creatures that were ignorant of the item that Sijin got for free. Though Sijin lacks ingredients like boiled water or ice cubes to make iced Americanos, still, it is a luxury given his circumstances and situation. To improvise his coffee, Sijin asked his acquaintance B to put honey on his coffee for a sweeter taste. With that, Sijin's honey Americano is done. It is a combination of coffee powder dissolved in the cool cave's water mixed with Poison Bee's thick honey, creating a perfect harmony of bitter and sweet taste. Just a sip of this coffee would relieve your fatigue and hunger. Sijin enjoyed the coffee so much because of its sweet taste. The rabbits also wanted to try it out, but as soon as they took a sip, they tasted bitterness that they spit out instantly. Guess the rabbit's tongue has a better sense of bitter taste than humans. Then Sijin looked up and saw that the poison honeybee had its beehive inside the cave. Sijin called out the poison honeybee, which immediately went to him like a puppy. Sijin noticed the beehive and was happy to know that the poison honeybee was moving in with them. It's sad for Sijin to see the honeybee leave the cave and return to their house for dinner every day. Still, now that the honeybee is immigrating to their cave, he could feel like they're all a family together. With that, Sijin wanted to celebrate the honeybees moving. Still, a new quest was triggered, given by the tower's manager. The quest is like the others, where the tower manager demands 10 magic cherry tomatoes. But something changes when it comes to the quest's refusal. Since Sijin keeps postponing the quest, he thinks that the tower's manager started to realize something after Sijin made a deal with Theo. The threats like "offer me" or "I'll kill you" have disappeared. Rather, they are asking me with that sad expression. And because of that, Sijin thinks that he might start to like them as much as he hates them, so he decides to give them some. After Sijin gave the cherry tomatoes as requested, the tower manager thanked him for his kindness. With that, Sijin teased the tower manager for thanking him for the first time since then, but later realized that he was being a pushover to the tower manager. Meanwhile, in one of the village bars on the tower's upper levels, Scaram and his acquaintances are talking over a beer. Scaram was wondering where Theo went after he gave him trashy items to resell since he expects Theo to return to him. One of Scaram's acquaintances asked him if he was talking about the pushover cat that bought his items last time, to which Scaram confirmed. The other acquaintance thinks Scaram is smart for selling trashy items to the pushover cat, Theo, and deceiving him. He hopes to learn the same tricks from Scaram as well. After that, he asked him why Scaram was looking for the cat. Scaram replied that since Theo spent all his money to buy Scaram's items, he expects Theo to return to the Wandering Merchant Guild to report that he cannot sell the items he had. Scaram's acquaintance asked if Theo would actually return and report the items, but Scaram assures them that he got it all planned out. If Theo were to return, Scaram wouldn't pretend he didn't see him and plan to buy Theo a glass of milk, informing him about a bigger opportunity and lending him his money to accomplish the task. If it is to happen, Theo would have to work hard to repay the loan he borrowed from Scaram on usury. And if Theo can't pay back on time, especially with the ever-increasing interest, Theo would become his slave until death. Hearing this made his acquaintance praise him for his genius idea, although they wondered why Scaram didn't find him as soon as possible since it's not easy to find such a pushover. But Scaram is relaxed, telling them they have plenty of time and it's better not to chase the prey recklessly. After that talk, Scaram opened his window to look at the Wandering Merchant's sales ranking since it had already been updated for the week. He saw his name finally reaching level 1000 on rank 999 with 42 tower coins earned as a Wandering Merchant. They praised Scaram again for reaching the position, slowly building up his reputation. But he reached that rank by selling items to recently registered and newbie Wandering Merchants. After that, he scrolled up the rankings list to see who he should beat next. But a particular name caught his attention. It was Theo. He ranked higher than Scaram in position 982nd, earning 50 tower coins as a Wandering Merchant. Seeing the name that he scammed was in a higher position than him made him very furious. He jerked up, aggressively wondering how Theo could sell the trashy items. Meanwhile, on the farm, Theo returns from his mission after days of journey from the tower to the cave. Sijin didn't expect to see him as soon. Still, he asked Theo where he went to. Theo apologized and accidentally blurted out that he won't be playing on the other floor and return immediately after he sold out. This confused Sijin as to what he meant by it. Theo explained that he had been playing on the other tower floors for 4 days without a choice. Sijin mentioned that Theo told him it would take at least 10 days to make a round trip to the 30th floor. That's why he was confused about why Theo got time to play for 4 days after selling out. With that, Sijin calculated and realized that Theo returned within 14 days, meaning he sold out the items as soon as he arrived at the floor. After realizing it, Sijin put his hand on Theo's shoulder and intimidatingly told him that if he didn't want to see his scary side, Theo should tell him the details. After a few minutes of explaining, Sejun was surprised that the hunter's team had bought all the items. Theo then showed Sejun the profit he gained with 50 tower coins. He complimented Theo and called him Employee Theo, giving him his incentive of 2 tower coins. Theo asked why he wasn't called a sales cat Theo the Resourceful. Sejun simply explained that he got demoted after playing for 4 days, and if he wants to make up for it, Sejun will reinstate him again as a sales cat and give him a raise of 5% incentive. Sejun also noticed that Theo has been talking in the Grammar dialect. He explained that he decided to live and talk that way since humans like that side more. After that, Park Sejun hoped that one day people would know about his name. Knowing that the farmer's name is displayed on the stats of the cherry tomato he harvested, people will talk about him soon. Except Theo was getting hot-seated about the topic because, as a newbie wandering merchant, they can forcibly hide the origin of the goods they sell. It is a policy meant to prevent wealthy wandering merchants from stealing the supply of beginner wandering merchants. Therefore, Sejun's hope of being known to be the cherry tomato's cultivator is long lost. Theo was scared that if Sejun knew the truth, he would be angry, and being demoted as an employee, he would be downgraded to become an intern or a part-timer that earns a lot cheaper. He could not let this happen, and thinking about it got him sweaty and nervous. Sejun asked him what was wrong, but he couldn't confess something to his disadvantage, so he went on his way and asked them to hand him the magic cherry tomatoes to sell again. Sejun tells him to take a break for a few days and receive his weekly payroll before going back up again. Still, Theo insists and quickly collects the cherry tomatoes to put on his bag. He was in a hurry since he needed to remove the restriction to display the cultivator's name. Because of that, he needs to achieve 1,000 tower coins and become a mid-level wandering merchant. Would he make it in time? Or would Scarum be there to sabotage him for revenge? And that's how the first part of this manhwa ends. Well guys, if you like this video and you want a second part, comment below with the word part 2, also subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and like the video. But most important, leave a comment. Until the next video.